So we're going to start this series on the names of God, and I want to start today by laying a foundation for what we're really going to study moving forward, and talk about one of the most used, or the two most used phrases in the Bible for the name of God as it is spoken. I think that the first thing that we really have to talk about is names themselves, right? That's if we're going to talk about the name of God and how we worship God through His name, we have to talk about names, because I think that some significance in names has been lost over centuries and centuries of time. And what a name means today is different than what a name meant when this pen was put to paper in the Bible that we read. I took a look on Google before coming in here this morning and looked at the two most popular baby names in 2017. And last year, if you had a girl, you were most likely to name her Sophia. And if you had a boy, you were most likely to name him Jackson. Those were the two names that were the most popular given names for children last year. I think that we often, and I can remember this in going through the process of coming up with names for our own children. Today, we often name our children based on a perception of how that name will look, sound, and feel. I know in my daughter's case, we wanted to make sure that her name could be pronounced along with Kanandike and flow off the tongue, because having the last name Kanandike makes you have to think about that when you name your child, right? You don't want to give them too much to write on a piece of paper either, so some of that was brought into effect. In biblical times, though, it was completely different than that. A name meant something. It was a very powerful part of who you are, was what your given name was. It wasn't just something that would separate you as an individual from other individuals. It was something that you would actually live into this name that you were given. In some cases, names were given, and we see this in the Bible, names were given to people as a form of prophesying about them and their future. The name was given because it meant something about what this person will do or achieve. In other situations in the Bible, and some of the big stories we can remember, people's names actually changed as their lives or their ministries changed. You could think of Abram becoming Abraham. You could think about, in the New Testament, Saul becoming Paul. Or Peter becoming Peter when he was Simon. Those name changes, very significant in changes in ministry in their lives, things that really meant something. All throughout biblical times, and all throughout the Bible that we read, God's name has this level of significance to it. The name that's written in the Bible in the original languages was written in a way that has significance to it, and I think that we've lost it over time because of the way that we've translated, Americanized, Latinized the words themselves, that we've lost the original significance that was placed on the paper with these specific names. And so this morning, this basis or foundation that I want to start with this Name of God series is to talk about the two significant names of God that are used most frequently in the Bible. There's three terms that we want to kind of review today. We're going to look in Genesis chapter 1, and I know you guys have a Bible on the table that will just use the name God or Lord God in it. And I've brought my Names of God Bible so that I can read to you what the original translation of that name would be, what the original text of that name would be in each of those cases. Let's just start. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. I think this is where we'll kind of begin this thought process this morning. If you want to turn there in your Bibles, it should be an easy one to find. It's right in the front. It's where the Bible starts.
Page 1.
Page 1. Very good. And we're just going to go chapter 1, verse 1. And I think that I will, we'll skip around a little bit here because I think it's going to be important as we talk through this. In the beginning, your Bible says God, right? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. In the beginning, Elohim created heaven and earth. Elohim is the word that was originally listed in the Bible here for God. The earth was formless and empty, and the darkness covered the deep water. The Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, was hovering over the water. Then Elohim said, "Let there be light," so there was light. Elohim saw the light was good, so Elohim separated the light from the darkness. Elohim named the light day, and the darkness he named night. There was evening and then morning the first day. And Genesis will go on and on and on in this first chapter. Then Elohim said, and Elohim saw. Then Elohim said, then Elohim saw. Then Elohim said. It goes on and on. I want to flip forward to chapter 2, verse 4. The title in my Bible is The Creation of Man and Woman. This is the account of heaven and earth where they were created at the time when Yahweh, Elohim, made heaven and earth. Wild bushes and plants were not on the earth yet because Yahweh, Elohim, hadn't sent rain on the earth. Also, there was no one to farm the land. Instead, underground water would come up from the earth and water the entire surface of the ground. Then Yahweh, Elohim, formed the man from the dust of the earth and blew the breath of life into his nostrils. The man became a living being. Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden in the west, and that's where he put the man who he had formed. Yahweh Elohim made all the trees grow out of the ground. These trees were nice to look at, and their fruit was good to eat. The tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil grew in the middle of the garden. And this chapter goes on. And every time God's name is mentioned in this chapter, Yahweh Elohim is used instead of Elohim. Yahweh Elohim together. So let's talk about this for a minute, what these two things mean and why that we see this pattern of his name in the Bible. There's two words we saw, Elohim and Yahweh, that I spoke, and one that I didn't speak, which is El. And I want to talk about that one first because it's the basis for the remaining two. El is an ancient Semitic term. It was actually used even by the Canaanites to describe God, or God as anybody would have seen it. El is a singular noun in those original languages. So when we speak of or we see in the Bible the word El, it can mean God or gods or any God that's being described. Okay, so it's a nondescript version of God. Elohim, however, is a plural version of El. Anytime you have an I am, it's a plural version. So you think seraphim is another word. Seraphim, that's another way of saying something plural as far as a noun. So Elohim is a noun in its plural form. In the beginning of Genesis, we see that plural form is used to describe the God that's being described as creating the universe. The reason why this plural form of this noun in his name Elohim is used here is because it's a way of projecting majesty onto this word God that's listed in the Bible. So an original reader of a text like this would see that we are speaking of a different God or a different type of God here. There's something different because we're not using the term El, which is what should have been placed in this text here if we're speaking in the native language of the time. So Moses, the writer of Genesis, Elohim is the word he chose at the beginning of Genesis to describe this God. In chapter 2, when man is created, we see the introduction of the word Yahweh Elohim. Yahweh, I'm speaking as Yahweh, is the way to say the four letters that are on the side of the screen. YHWH, there's no vowels in it. This is exactly how God's name was printed in the original Bibles. It's four letters. YHWH. Yahweh is how we say that. You've probably heard the term Jehovah. Jehovah is a Latinized version of Yahweh. That's what Jehovah is. It's just a Latinized version of that same word. The importance of YHWH is that this is like a pronoun. So we have a pluralized noun and we have a pronoun. A pronoun meaning this is a personal name. This is a personal name of God. So now we are distinctively saying that not only is this a great God, but this is a specific person, an individual, and this is who it is. So we see at the creation of man and woman, Yahweh Elohim. Those two words right together. Now I want to really distinguish this because Yahweh Elohim together, some scholars would look at this and say, okay, well, they're putting a plural noun next to a regular noun. It could be translated to say the Lord of gods or one of many gods. But it isn't really intended to say that way. People who studied ancient Semitic writings, specifically of the Israelites, would say that it's not Lord of gods, but the purpose behind putting these two words together, especially in this case, is that this is the universal God over all gods. It's the one true God. And so I think it's pretty interesting reading Genesis over with those names inside to look at the reasoning or the purpose behind using these words in this case. I think we sung some of these words, and we know through reading the Bible that we hear phrases in the Bible like, I will call upon the name of the Lord, or God actually saying, I will make my name known to people. Okay? And so I want to talk about those phrases in light of what we're learning with these two words this morning. Just as a fact, if you like these kind of facts, the word Elohim in the Bible occurs 2,111 times. The word Yahweh or YHWH appears in the original text 5,181 times. So more often we get the personal name of God rather than this plural or majesty version of it. So back up with these two words that we see in Genesis, I really wanted to show you what the thought process is with the writer and what that can mean to us as far as a promise of his name at the start of this whole series, okay? So at the beginning, Moses uses this Elohim word, this idea that I'm talking about a majesty that you can't comprehend. I'm talking about a God that is above and bigger than anything that you've seen or heard of before. That's the God that I'm placing into this creation story. The God that built all of this stuff around here, this is who we're talking about. And when it comes to making you, when it comes to making man, when it comes to breathing life into people, I want to introduce you to him by name. Because that is what it means in the Bible when it says, I will make my name known to the nations. I will make my name known to an individual. God is saying, you know me and can know me on a personal basis. This is unique in terms of study of God's, how they were named and written about in that time frame, that there was this designation of a personal name or a pronoun. I think that what that can mean for us as a promise is, as we move forward in some of these other names that we'll attach to these, is that this is the God that created everything that surrounds us. This is the God that has given us life itself. And it's a God that wants to be known personally. It's a God that has a name that we can call on in a personal way. So how can you guys use this stuff as Christians, as followers, right? Like this is interesting information, and as we move forward through it, I think you'll feel like even some more of these names that get attached are going to be nice information. I think there's a few things that you can do with this information. One is you can know that when Moses, Abraham, David, Jesus addressed God, that these are the terms that they addressed God with. And so in some ways it can help your faith or build your faith to use some of this language when you speak to him. So I would encourage you as Christians, I'm going to encourage myself as a Christian to think about it this way. By praying, and I pray to Yahweh Elohim. I'm praying in the same terms that Moses would have used in speaking his name to his heavenly Father. It's just a way of identifying. I think that the other thing that we can get from this as Christians is obviously to look into the fact that what we've spoken about this morning, that God initiates this relationship. God moves towards us. And he's done that through even speaking his name, for letting us to know personally the name of this majestic being. And that's comforting. That's a real promise. I wanted to leave with one verse that talks about this idea of Elohim and how it can be a promise for us to hold on to. Isaiah 41 verse 10 is where this verse is located. Don't be afraid because I am with you. Don't be intimidated. I am your Elohim. will strengthen you. I will help you. I will support you with my victorious right hand. It's a promise right out of Isaiah 41 verse 10 using Elohim that you could even pray to when you're facing something yourself. Do not be afraid because I am with you. Do not be intimidated. I am your Elohim. God, you are my Elohim. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will support you with my victorious right hand. Let's pray. God, thank you for revealing yourself to us. Thank you for your mighty name, as we sung about this morning. That through knowing who you are, we are saved. Through this relationship initiated by you. God, as we stand and sing, this last song, God, we come in holy reverence of the majesty that's attached to it, to Elohim. But we also come with the idea that we can personally reach out to our Yahweh. Amen. Stand and sing one more song.